Hey friends, welcome back to Tracie Thrives at Home. In today's video, I'm sharing a few creative and affordable spring-inspired home decor DIYs. I've been eyeing some of the dreamy spring decor from places like Anthropologie, Arhaus, and Pottery Barn, but at sometimes hundreds of dollars per item, my budget said absolutely not. So I decided to DIY some of the items that really caught my eye, and I am so excited to show you the transformations. I'll be upgrading and completely transforming some basic decor pieces I had on hand using beginner-friendly techniques, and I'll show you how I styled them in my home for a cozy spring feel. I hope this video inspires you and gives you a few ideas to bring spring into your own home. Let's get into it. I was really drawn to the rattan and floral lamps that I saw on Anthropologie's website, and I had this basic wicker lamp from Target that I'd purchased a few months back. I love a woven or wicker pattern for spring, so I thought this would be perfect. I'm just first going in with some sandpaper to roughen and texturize the surface before I go in with a primer. Since I'm completely changing the color of this lamp base, I want to make sure that I go in and do a really thorough job. So I'm first going in and priming the inside of this lamp before I prime the outside, because I do intend to paint the inside as well as the outside. The primer needs to sit for at least 24 hours to really set and to guarantee that good adhesion for the paint. So I'm going in and repainting the hardware on the base and on the shade of the lamp to this sort of aged or antiqued brass look. To paint the hardware, I combined a mixture of that clear primer, some black acrylic paint I had on hand, and this Liquitex acrylic paint in iridescent antique gold. The following day, the primer is set and ready for paint. The lamps I was inspired by had basic shades, but colorful and interesting bases. And when I think of spring and colors associated with the season, I think of green, so that's what I chose for this lamp. However, I couldn't find quite the right shade that I had in mind, so I decided to create my own blend of two colors. The main color is English Ivy Green, and secondary is Kelly Green, probably at a 3-to-1 ratio. I purchased these two acrylic paints from Walmart for under 60 cents each. Like I mentioned before, I don't want any of this light wood color to peek through, so I'm going to do a really thorough job with this painting. I'm going in underneath and starting from the inside before I move to the outside. I do end up doing about 3 coats. As you can see, I'm moving my paintbrush around in a bunch of different directions, sometimes dabbing, and the intent was to coat every nook and cranny, but also trying to lay down a thin coat. I would say I allowed around 2 to 3 hours between coats, and that was plenty of time to let it set and dry. Now for the hardware on the lampshade and the base, I did end up doing 3 coats of that antique brass paint mixture. Now for the next and final step of this lamp makeover, the florals. I saw high-end lamps with floral accents, one with daisies, one with hydrangeas, and I wanted to incorporate something similar into my lamp design. One of my favorite flowering plants is lavender, and I had found this inexpensive 3-pack of faux lavender bunches, and I decided to borrow some stems from these bunches and use them to complete my lamp base. Using my hot glue gun, I attach varying size sprigs to the lamp unevenly spaced over the surface. I'm pulling sprigs off of these bunches and then cutting them up into pieces that are different sizes, different shapes, different colors, and just kind of playing around with it to see what looks pleasing to my eye. That's a wrap on the lamp. I am pretty pleased with how this turned out. I really like how the traditional woven wicker pattern is present, but with a hand-painted twist. The green turned out exactly as I'd envisioned, not too bright but not too moody, and blends in nicely with my surrounding decor. The little pops of lavender aren't too overwhelming, and they definitely help bring that spring feeling into my home. Moving on to the next decor piece, a really simple way to change up the look and feel of your space is by displaying art, photos, or prints. So I thought, why not do a frame? It could be used on a wall, a table, and it could display any number of things. So I had this really cheap white frame from Walmart in my stash for so long that I was thinking about donating, so I went ahead and grabbed that. Since it's so basic, it actually was a great starting base for this makeover. To get this project started, I'm removing the glass and back of the frame so I have the empty shell, and I'm giving it a good sanding all around so the surface is better to adhere to. Then I'm taking it outside and using the leftover black spray paint I had from my patio refresh to give it a black base. By the way, if you haven't seen it yet, my previous video was a full front patio clean and refresh on a budget with some Dollar Tree decor and a couple of affordable DIYs thrown in, so definitely go check it out. Here I am cutting and attaching some rattan weaving cane that I had on hand in my craft supplies. And the reason I chose this material is simply because of the texture of it and the lined pattern that's on the material. I was looking for a way to add those details without having to hand paint them, and I found this in my stash. Using E6000 adhesive, I'm attaching strips of the material to all the outward facing sides of the frame. Once I had all my pieces glued and in place, I set the frame aside for 24 hours to allow the glue to set and dry. The following day, I whipped up that aged brass paint mixture that I'd used on the lamp hardware, but with a little extra black to make sure it covers that brown rattan. After that coat dries, I apply another coat of that same paint mixture, but with less black and a little bit more antique gold mixed in. I had spotted these thin metal frames at Pottery Barn and wanted to try to kind of emulate that feel, but I wanted that metal to match the hardware on the lamp. As I did with the lamp, I ended up going in with 3 coats of paint and about at least 2 to 3 hours of dry time in between coats. Now, I could have stopped here. I think the frame looks beautiful, but I was also inspired by some of the bright and colorful frames that I had seen on places like Anthropologie. So in an effort to be able to bring that element into the frame, I grabbed one of these pre-cut mats that I have on hand and decided to paint it green, the same green that I used on the lamp. And to complete things off, I am just adding one of my own small paintings to the frame, and I think it adds a nice pop of color and that floral spring vibe. I love how this frame turned out, and I can see myself using it as part of my fall decor, maybe even switching out the matte to black or adding my own colors if I want. Now for my last DIY for this video, and this one is really exciting for me. I've had this gray picture decor piece from Target for years, and I like the shape of it, but I don't love the color of it anymore. Since I've always wanted an aged brass style vessel, and I was already using that finish on my other pieces, I took the opportunity to overhaul this thing and see what I ended up with. The first thing I'm doing, of course, is sanding it and roughening up the texture so that I can lay down my first layer of primer. I mixed a little bit of the black acrylic paint I had with the clear primer to create that dark color. My technique while I'm applying this primer is both vertical and horizontal brush strokes and pretty messy. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want to create some texture on this picture, which I believe was some sort of like a glazed ceramic material, so it's very smooth. I had applied the first layer of primer pretty thinly, so I decided to go back and apply a second layer. I'm really glad I did it, but it did make the process take longer because each layer needed 24 hours to fully set. I then applied a mixture of the Liquitex Iridescent Antique Gold mixed in with a little black acrylic paint and used the same brushing technique to apply it vertically and horizontally and imperfectly. Once that was dry, I prepared the paint mixture for my final layer. I decided that the first layer of aged brass mixture dried a little too gold than what I wanted, so for the final layer, I made sure to add a bit more black to the mixture to tone the gold down and make it look more aged. I also wanted to make sure that as I was applying the paint, my brush strokes were laid down all in the same direction. So I'm applying this final coat horizontally, and the results were just what I was looking for. To bring all of my decor pieces together, I took this woven basket, stained it a darker tone of wood than it was when I purchased it, and then gathered all my lavender florals and tied them together and placed them in the basket. Then I placed the basket sort of like a centerpiece on my island, and I thought that was a nice touch. I decided to take my little spring decor collection and use it to style the cabinet on my second floor landing entryway. I love that as you come up the stairs, it's the first thing that you see, and it definitely lets you know that spring is in the air. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope these simple DIYs gave you a little inspiration to get creative and bring some cozy spring vibes into your home. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, I'd love to have you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Let me know in the comments which project was your favorite, or if you've done any fun spring DIYs yourself. I'll see you in the next one.